Hey guys, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Shanae, and today I'm going to show you how to make my go-to all butter pie crust. This is my go-to recipe since 2013. I mean, this has been time-tested recipe. Everybody loves it. It's really foolproof all butter pie crust recipe. Before we get started, can we just notice my new apron with my new logo? This summer, we launched new website redesign, and my sweet web designer sent me this beautiful apron, and I'm just so excited. I love red color, and I love my new logo, and it's here. So anyway, let's get started. For this pie dough recipe, we will need some flour. We need butter, of course. I don't use shortening because I don't use it often enough to justify to have it on hand. And this all butter recipe actually much more flavorful. And a little bit salt. And I do add a little bit, 1 egg yolk because it adds nice richness. And we need ice cold water. It's really easy. And you're wondering why the heck the stand mixer stand here. A lot of recipes, most of recipes always use food processor. And I do have a food processor, but when it comes to pie crust, I don't use it because I just don't see the reasoning behind it. Because if you're gonna bring out a big food processor and you're gonna just mix it in and then you knead it by hand anyway, there's not much reason to, basically. I'm not denying anyone anything, but I use my stand mixer, and I'm going to show you it works, and it works wonderfully. And I have people, my readers, tried this recipe also, said, yay, it works. So stand mixer it is. I'm using it with my pedal attachment and into the mixer. And by the way, this recipe doubles really well, and I always double the recipe. But for today's video purposes, I'm going to show just one batch. So into the mixer, we add flour and salt, and then we'll just give it a quick whirl to combine the salt and flour. Okay, now what we'll do is we're going to add butter. The butter here, we need 1 cup of butter for a cup and a half flour, and I cut it into 1/2 tablespoon chunks of butter, and I put it in the freezer for about 30 minutes while I prepared everything, and then I just put it in. Let's just go ahead and separate it a little bit because they are frozen in chunks, I think. Cold butter is essential for making flaky pie crust because when we mix everything, we don't want all the butter melt away and make a sticky dough. We want actually, like, we're just gonna break apart the butter and mix into the flour. And if you see little chunks, pea-sized chunks of butter, it's actually a good thing. If you don't see any chunks of butter, that means you will mix the butter flour dough, and which is not the worst thing, but you will miss out on the flakiness. And at the same time, I'll add the yolk, and then we'll mix it just a little bit, like I said, until the butter breaks down, and then we'll see a little bit pea-sized chunks on a slow speed. Make sure it's on a low speed because you don't want anything flying out. So the mixture is pretty much ready. It's beautiful. I can still see chunks of butter, which is great. Like, okay, so I'll show you. This is a little bigger than pea size, but which is all right. At this point, this is good because we're going to start adding ice water. We're not gonna use ton of ice water, and you're not gonna add all the water at once because the amount of water depends on a lot of factors like humidity, your flour, how they absorb water and whatnot. We are aiming for about 3 to 4 tablespoons maximum of cold water. And I also wanted to show you, if you don't have a stand mixer, you can actually use a pastry cutter like this, or even you can grate your frozen butter on the grater and add it into the flour and do it everything by hand. So anyway, I'll keep the mixer running, and then I'll add 2 tablespoons of water and then see how it looks. And though it doesn't have to come together in the mixer, but for the most part it should be a little cohesive, come to the bowl. Here's my 3rd tablespoon, and you have to wait until before adding the next batch because it's still coming together. This is after 3rd tablespoon of water. And if I can make a ball like this, that means basically ready. I'll add a little bit more. Just doesn't feel just quite right yet. 4 tablespoons of water, and my dough is basically come together. Don't worry if it's not in one ball yet, but we're going to shape it into a disc and put it in the fridge for about at least 30 minutes because it will be, the flour will absorb all the liquid still, and it will become really nice consistency, easy to work with. And then we'll go ahead and shape it into a disc. The reason we're using ice cold water and freezing the butter is because we don't want melt the butter, like I said earlier. The little chunks of butter melts in the hot oven and evaporates the excess moisture, and that's how you get the beautiful flakiness. It's just like making croissants at home. I have a recipe on my website for croissants, and the same basically technique is applied here. So you see this streaks of butter, it's a really good thing. It's a good sign that we haven't overmixed the butter or anything. So once they're in the freezer for 30 minutes, it will be so much easier to roll it into, to put it in a pie shell. Beautiful pie dough. Look at that. Beautiful streaks, white butter chunks, exactly how you want to see it. Actually, it's really great to make a bunch of pie dough in advance, and then you can just put it in the freezer, and whenever you feel like having pie, you can put it in the fridge, thaw it out, and roll into a pie crust, and you don't have to make pie dough every time you want to make pie. I usually have on hand 5-6 pie doughs at all times so that I can bake pie whenever I want to. Another great, okay, I'm gonna put it in the freezer and I'll come back with another tip. So while my pie dough is chilling in the fridge, let's talk about another way you can pre-make your pie crust. So this is a pie crust I made a while back, and I rolled it out and put it in my pie dough dish and formed it in my pie dough dish and froze it. And then I popped it out of the pie dough dish and froze it like this. How cool is this? So now you don't even have to make it roll out the pie dough. If you have time, you can just go ahead and do this and then have it ready. The only caveat to this is you do want to have upright freezer with lots of space. You don't want to accidentally put something on it and crush it, because and you can actually freeze it in your pie dish if you don't need it, and you will have ready to go your very own pre-made pie. dish. How cool is that? It worked beautifully. The only thing is, again, you need to be very accurate with it, not to crush it. And there you have it. And then some pies require blind baking. Let's talk about blind baking for a little bit. So blind baking is when you have a filling that needs to be cooked for a long time. So for example, my lemon meringue pie requires blind baked pie shell. Basically what it means is the shell is cooked with nothing, without filling, so that it doesn't get soggy and it doesn't get raw. So like lemon meringue pie, you don't cook the pie itself. You just cook the shell and put the filling in. Or my pecan pie. Pecan pie, you cook it with the filling, but because the filling is too runny, you do need to blind bake your shell too. To blind bake the pie crust, you need to first place it in your pie dough dish, of course, and then you put the foil in the middle, and then you fill it with the pie weights. I don't have a pie weights, so I usually use raw beans, and I'm going to show you how I do it. But before that, let's go ahead and roll out the pie dough that we made. So it's been about 30 minutes for my pie dough to chill in the freezer. I'm going to show you how to roll it out. Generously dust some flour on your counter and on top as well, so that nothing sticks around. And then just gently go ahead and roll it. It will crack around on the outside, but don't worry, it will come out just fine. When you are rolling, keep rotating the dough quarter turns or so that everything rolls out evenly. Look at this, how beautiful this butter streaks and chunks. It's a beautiful sign. I just love seeing it. I know I'm saying this so many times, but just want to point this out if you making pie crust for the first time and you see that and you're freaking out, and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't mix it well. Well, you did just right. So, and if it's cracking, don't worry. This is nothing to stress about, because we'll just glue it back together. I like to make the edges a little thinner than the middle, because the edges, I'll show you in a minute, they will be folded together and you don't want too thick of a edge. Here's another 9-inch pie dish. What I would do is I just put it in the middle, like so. Yep. It's about 2 inches, which is a good size. So I'm going to transfer it onto my pie dish. And to do that, here's a little trick. You roll your dough on your rolling pin. So, okay. Put your pie dish here, and then you gently transfer it just like that. Don't worry if it's not centered right, because. And here's another one important point. To prevent shrinking the pie dough, one of the most common issues with all butter pie crust is shrinking. Pie dough with a shortening tends to shrink less, but with butter it does shrink quite a bit. So to prevent that, you don't want to stretch the pie dough too much when it's in the pie dish. Instead, just go ahead and gently tug it in, because if you stretch it, it will just go right back into the place. So see here, don't be afraid to patch some areas where there's a very little dough, because you can just patch it together, because you want as equal as possible. But don't get too obsessed about it. I usually don't cut anything out, because I just like to keep everything in the pie dough. So roll it, fold the excess crust underneath, like so. And make sure it's rolled up over the lip of the pie dish. I went all around. It doesn't look perfect, but don't worry. We're going to make it perfect now. To design the crimps, I usually go to the classic finger thing instead of going with the fingertips like so, because my nails cut through the dough a lot. So I just use my knuckles like this. And another important tip is make sure your crust is over the edges and a little bit, you want to crimp it over the edge. If you put it inside, like the ridges inside the rim, then it will shrink and fall down easily. I have done a few times that mistake, and that just affects the appearance, but that was my lemon meringue pie, which with a beautiful meringue topping, it wasn't nothing to worry about. But still, that's something to keep in mind. So basically, that's it. Or you can also use a fork and go this way too. It's really easy that way. But I like this crimping method. Okay, this one is not ready to bake yet because you want to chill this crust before baking, again to prevent shrinkage. And now we will just go ahead and pop it in the freezer for at least 30 minutes, and then we'll blind bake it as well. But I think my other crust is coming out soon, and I'll show you what's the next step. It's been 15 minutes just baking, and I'm going to remove the weights, and then we'll dock the crust so it doesn't create too big pockets. And into the oven it goes for another 15 minutes. So my second pie crust came out. It's looking beautiful. As you can see, the rims are so beautiful and tall and didn't shrink as bad because we made sure to crimp the edges over the ridges. And this one shrank a little bit more because it wasn't clung to the ridges as well. So that's a key here. Now, while this is cooling, let's take a look at this. This one shrunk a little bit, so I'm going to make lemon meringue pie and cover it with a tall meringue, and nobody will know. It will taste as delicious as usual. And I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you learned anything, please let me know in the comments below. And if you have any questions, also let me know in the comments below. I have lots and lots of recipes for pie using this pie crust. I have mini pies, hand pies, beautiful pumpkin pies, and lemon meringue pie, pecan pie, also banana cream pie. It's so delicious. Lots of choices, lots of recipes for you to follow, and I really hope you will make amazing pie this holiday season. And don't forget to share on Instagram and tag me in your beautiful photos. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye. Okay, Grant really needs to taste test this pie crust, so we're gonna dive in. No pie for us today, but I'll show you how flaky it is. Wow. You wanna try it?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Good.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
What do you taste?
I taste egg.
Egg? Mm-hmm.
And sunflower.
Sunflower?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, what is your favorite pie?
A 3 flavors pie.
What? 3 flavored pie?
Strawberry and chocolate flavor and blueberry.
Okay, that sounds yummy.